and get started. And then also just another note, this will be recorded. It'll be on our website in the next few days. And if there's any questions that are left unanswered, I am happy to respond via email. You can call me at the conclusion of the webinar. All right, so just a quick agenda of what to expect today. So we're going to quickly go over the BYI program. I want to touch on our Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, JEDI. We'll cover the guidelines and eligibility of the program, the process timeline, the letter of intent, including how to apply and the application details. And then there's a few slides regarding the full application and interview for those in advance. And then at the end, we'll have Q&A. These take about 15 minutes and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. And if it's less than an hour, happy to give you your time back. So just a quick introduction, the Young Investigator program was started in 1991. Since its inception in 91, we've awarded over $130 million to 400 early career awardees. The program supports the most promising young faculty members in the early stages of their academic careers. Specifically, right now, those guidelines include being within the first 4 years of a tenure track position. We'll cover that a little bit more in the next coming slides. And this is also specific to the chemical and life sciences, though that is very broadly interpreted, to foster the invention of methods, instruments, and materials that will open up new avenues of research in science. So just to quickly touch on our JEDI, the foundation is very committed to our JEDI. And we actually started a JEDI committee in 2021 that helps us review all of our programs. The BYI program underwent a review from the committee just last year. And due to that, we were able to make lots of great changes, including rolling out the mentor office hours that we hosted last year. We'll be hosting again this year. And something that we did even prior to having a JEDI committee is we did start blinding our letters of intent. We started doing this in 2020. We have found that this works exceptionally well for our program. And there's actually a slide, the next slide. We were able to publish our research just a few months ago in eLife. And just to give you kind of a quick high level of what we found. So this was done over the last 8 years, 4 years being prior to blinding, 4 years post-blinding. So pre-blinding, we found that 75% of our awards went to applicants from the top 25 institutions. And post-blinding, it reduced to 45%. So this is definitely something that we find encouraging. We're really hoping that we can lead the charge for other foundations to do the same. We will definitely continue having the BYI letter of intent be blinded. We also have our postdoctoral fellow LOI blinded. And in addition to it being, we think, much more equitable, it also helps our reviewers. It reduces their workload, helps for potential burnout. So definitely something that has been successful for us. So BYI program guidelines, these remain unchanged year to year, but the basic sort of high level view of the program should be that these applications should be innovative, they should be high risk, and they should show promise for contributing to significant advances in the chemical and life sciences. So this program supports early career scientists that have not yet received major funding from another organization. To follow in line with that, we have a $225,000 limit in external annualized funding that applicants must remain at or under in order to remain eligible. Projects should represent a departure from current research rather than an extension or expansion. This does not mean that projects must be completely new, but they should not be the next logical step. And then lastly, projects are funded for up to 4 years, providing $150,000 annually in support. The foundation does not allow for overhead or indirect costs. Digging into the program eligibility, again, just to clarify, this is specific to the 2025 program that will open in just a few days, June 3rd. So it is only open to early tenure track within the first 4 years. So this means that your position must have started after January 1st, 2020 and before August 1st, 2024. It can also include August 1st, 2024. Applicants must be citizens or permanent residents at the time of the interview. So to further clarify, that means that if you were in the process of obtaining permanent residency, you are eligible to apply. You must be a permanent resident or citizen prior to the interview. So that means by March 2025, if your application advances, I will be in contact with you to check in on the status. And if you have not received permanent residency, you are unfortunately no longer eligible for the program. Our hope is that these additional months will allow all of these things to sort of work out in the hopes that you can remain eligible. This was something that we started post-COVID when we noticed that the backlog for this was just getting extremely lengthy. This is something we're offering to hopefully mitigate that. Next eligibility criteria is no more than $225,000 in external annualized direct funding. This does not include your startup. This does not include any grants you received as a postdoc. This does not include internal grants. These are just external, broken down annually, and the direct amount that your lab is receiving. Clinical research and clinical trials are not eligible for this program, nor are government laboratories. Applicants can apply a maximum of 2 program cycles, and this does include submitting a letter of intent. And lastly, applicants can have no more than 10 years post-terminal degree and no more than 5 years experience in a non-tenure track or industry position, but this does not include your postdoc position. So to clarify, if you received your post-terminal degree in any month in 2014, you are eligible to apply for the current 2025 program. Program timeline, the letter of intent always opens in early June and always closes in early August. This year it does close August 1st. It is a Thursday. The full application, if invited, notifications will go out in November, and these are due mid-January. And then the last step, the interview, notifications will go out in early April. Interviews are held virtually in late April. All right, now we'll move into the application itself, beginning with the letter of intent, how to apply. After determining eligibility on our website, you can create an application directly from our website. There's a box on the screen that says create or start an application here that will open when the application opens next Monday. Materials needed for the letter of intent include a 4-page LOI pre-proposal. These 4 pages are inclusive of images, references, and citations. As I mentioned, this is a blinded review, so that document is the absolute only document that the reviewers will have access to when the review begins. There are a few other documents required to submit. These are used exclusively internally to determine eligibility. So those include a biosketch, a current funding chart, and 2 institutional signatures. These are electronic signatures from the chief academic officer and the dean, or similarly authorized signers. So just some specific instructions about the blind review itself. So please obviously do not include your name, gender, or any other institutional information in your pre-proposal. You're encouraged but not required to write in third person to assist with this. Do not name collaborators, mentors, postdoc advisors, lab members, etc. These are the types of things that will make your pre-proposal ineligible. If you include references to your own publications, please do not use any formatting markings to identify yourself within the list of authors. It is absolutely okay to cite your own work. It is also absolutely okay if the reviewers are able to determine that it is your work because it's very specific or unique. However, as long as you follow the guidelines and don't make it known in the sense that you're highlighting or italicizing your name, you will remain eligible. And lastly, if you have unpublished work, please use the format that you see on the screen. This is also within the application itself. These are some tips that we wanted to include for writing your pre-proposal. So number 1 is keeping it concise. You do only have those 4 pages, so make sure that you clearly identify your aims and goals. And really the goal is to leave reviewers wanting more. The reviewers have hundreds and hundreds of these with the goal of forwarding about 100 to the full application review. Because they are only looking at your pre-proposal, you really kind of just want to get them excited to see more and to see the next step in the full application. The second tip is to speak to your audience. Reviewers are experts across a range of scientific fields, probably and more than likely not necessarily your field. So please just avoid using jargon and very specific acronyms when you write your pre-proposal. Third is keeping it anonymous. And last is to submit on time. You do have 8 weeks to complete this application. I highly suggest that you don't wait till the last few minutes to submit, as the system does sometimes slow down and get bogged down. If the application is late, it will be eliminated from the review. Some additional letter of intent resources. On our website, we have 2 examples of successful pre-proposals. We also have a guidance document to assist in the writing of the pre-proposal, as well as a frequently asked questions document. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we will be hosting mentor office hours again this year. This will be led by some alum and some current young investigators in July. When the application opens, there'll actually be a link to sign up to one of these meetings if you are interested. And all of these documents, with the exception of the mentor office hour sign up, can be found on our website under the program overview tab. The mentor office hours will focus on general grantsmanship, grant structure, and guidance tailored to the BYI. It's also a great opportunity to get some questions answered directly from a BYI alum or current BYI. We made some updates to the 2025 application this year that I wanted to call out specifically in case somebody's applying for the second time. We are no longer requiring that you submit any pending funding. We have also eliminated the current research support form via PDF. This is now built in to our application system. So you will only be entering your current funding, and you're only entering the direct amount of your external grants into the boxes. So I actually took a screenshot of the application itself below, as you can see, using a grant of $200,000. If your direct amount is $100,000, you'll break that down annually into, let's just say, the $50,000 for August 2024 through July 2025, and again for August 2025 to July 2026. These are the only 2 years we'll be asking for your current funding. Foundation defines current funding as funds that your lab has either already received or expects to receive upon signing a funding agreement. Letter of intent review process. We recruit reviewers across many different scientific disciplines. They do also often include former BYIs. They do have to have a rank of associate professor or higher. Applications are reviewed online by at least 3 reviewers, followed by a selection meeting. Reviewers will select up to 100 applicants to invite to submit a full application. If invited to submit a full application, you'll be notified in usually early November. This application is now no longer blinded, and it is much lengthier. So this includes a 6-page proposal, inclusive of images and citations. There is a section to include additional PI information, a project timeline, a budget for years 1 and 2, a bio sketch, and updated current funding. You do need to remain at or under $225,000 in annual direct external funding at the time of submitting the full application. In addition to that, there are a few other documents that you will need to request and make sure that they are completed by others. This includes an institutional support form with signatures, award term acknowledgement with signatures, and 2 letters of recommendation. One is from a no association field expert, and the second is from an affiliated letter writer. The review process is similar in the sense that there are 3 experts that will review your application, but there is a panel review that lasts a day and a half. This time it's much lengthier for the reviewers. From the full application review, we will cut from 100 to 16 applications to go to the interview stage. And as I mentioned, the full application is not blinded, and all of the application details are shared with reviewers. The last step in the BYI process is the interview. 16 applicants are invited to attend, and we typically award 10. Finalists are tasked with creating a 5-minute presentation summarizing the aims of their proposal. There is then a 10-minute Q&A following the presentation, and then some additional interview style questions. These are conducted virtually over 2 days via Zoom, and they're always held in late April. If awarded, our awardees are invited to attend our symposium. We hold this every year, typically in Irvine. You are invited, or you will be invited to attend every year of your grant. So typically you get to join for 5 years. Year 1 funds are distributed in the summer, usually in July or early August, and reporting will be due annually to the foundation in June. All right, and the last slide has my contact information, my email, my phone number. If there's any questions that are left unanswered, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat. And before we get into the Q&A, I just want to make a disclaimer that if there are any very specific eligibility type questions, specifically the amount of money you have or things like that, it's best if you email me directly. I'm happy to look it over. I would just rather do that while we are not on this meeting so we can make this as helpful for everyone as possible. So with that said, Carrie, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to start taking the chat questions.
Sent directly to chat for you, Nicole.
Thanks, Carrie. Okay, the first question is, can we submit 2 uniquely different letters of intent? No, you cannot. You can submit one. It is 1 letter of intent per applicant. Second question, if time is taken off for maternity and or gaps in research taken into account, considering 10 years post-terminal degree. Yes, we do allow for pauses such as maternity, paternity, things like that. Typically, this is extended for 1 additional year. I would recommend that you reach out to me directly to confirm, but typically, yes, that is accepted. Next question is, can you please give us more information about the 2 letters of support for the full application? Sure. So the letters of recommendation for the full application are very important. They are, one is specific to a non-affiliated letter writer. So typically this is someone that maybe you met at a conference, is an expert in your field that can really speak to your proposal strengths and why you're the best person to basically do the job. The affiliated letter writer is more than likely going to be your advisor or similar that can speak not only to your strengths as a scientist, but also to you as a person and kind of give a little bit more personal insight as to, again, why you're the right person to do the job and why you're a great fit for the Young Investigator program. With the $225,000 funding limit, if applicant has external funding greater than the $225,000 cap before the grant is awarded, does this still make the applicant ineligible to apply? So more than likely, yes. I'll go back to this screen. I know it's a little pixelated, I apologize. So as I mentioned, there are 2 years that you need to remain at or under $225,000. The current year, August 2024 through July 2025, and the first year of the award, August 2025 to July 2026. So if they have more than 225 in either of these years, they will be ineligible to apply. Next question, are preliminary results expected to be included in the letter of intent or full application? Preliminary results are welcome. You're welcome to include them. They are not required. If you have them and you think they strengthen your application, you're welcome to include them at both the letter of intent and full application stage. But again, not required. Obviously, proof of concept is always nice, but not required. It looks like there was a question about the 225. So is 225 total funding up to the time of application or is it per year? It is per year. So annualized direct funding, the exact dollar amount that you have going to your lab per year. Next question, I have multiple two-author papers. That would be a basis for my proposal. Self-citing would make it obvious who is applying here. So how to handle that? So again, we understand this does happen quite often. It is okay. And it is okay if a reviewer can figure out who you are. We just ask that you follow the format. Do not make your name italic or bolded. Just follow the format. It is okay if they figure out who you are. We as a foundation do not allow any conversations around who you might be to happen during the review process. So just because one person or even two people might know, it's not going to make your application ineligible, and the conversation will not happen around your identity. So for me, as the program officer, I'm clearly looking at these just to make sure that you followed the guidelines. If you have followed the guidelines, your application will remain eligible. Okay, sorry, just sorting through. I can't figure out from the website if proposals for computational work are also within the scope. Yes, computational work is absolutely fine. We do not have any sort of agenda as far as what we're funding. It is a very, very, very broad chemical and life sciences umbrella. So computational work does fall underneath that. Can you clarify following eligibility requirement? If our GC petition is approved and EAD is in hand, but the final GC is not in hand, are we still eligible? I'm very sorry. I'm not familiar with that terminology. If you can clarify, I'm happy to answer. Okay, next question. How, if at all, will Beckman instruct reviewers to take into account the unfortunate trend of anti-DEI laws being passed in states like Texas? These laws can directly affect how researchers may plan and propose research and related activities, and may affect how researchers at a state-funded university are perceived. Yes, we're unfortunately very well aware of this. This impacts more of our our Beckman Scholars Program than I anticipate it will impact this program. So we're not necessarily asking that applicants have a specific DEI agenda or that they do anything specifically. When we're collecting this type of information, it's really just to kind of get a more holistic approach about the PI themselves. Our review criteria will remain unchanged with these laws that are being passed. Next question, funding from a K99 R00 award is not counted in the funding limit, right? Yes, those are usually obtained as a postdoc, and that would be considered transitional funding. It is not included in the, it would not be included in the the $225,000 in external funding. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Juan, for clarifying. GC is green card and EAD is employment authorization document. Okay, let me go back up to the question. One moment. If the green card petition is approved and is in hand, but the final is not in hand, are we still eligible? I think this is one of those things that is extremely specific. I haven't seen this happen. So Juan, it might be best if you reach out to me directly, but I can tell you from just experience over the last few years, if you don't have the final documentation, if you don't have the final green card in hand, more than likely by the time of interview, you would not be eligible to continue to apply. The next question is, can you elaborate on the topics and preferred sub areas supported by the foundation? We have no preferred sub areas. There is truly no guidance on from the foundation as to what we are looking to fund. We accept any and all types of applications from anywhere from astrophysics to instrumentation development to microbiology, chemical engineering. We have seen it all and we fund it all. I highly recommend that you check out our recent awardees on our website, and you can see the types of the varied types of subjects that we funded over the last few years in general. But we don't have any preferred sub areas, and we don't have any specific missions as to what we are looking to fund. There's a clarification question about the K-99. Do you need to mention this in the funding table? There is actually a space in the application to list transitional awards. It will not be in the funding table that I had in this photo, but there is an area to include it. It will not be included in the 225. If part of the criteria is the work of being different from prior work, but the reviewers are not familiar with their prior work as they are blinded, how are they able to judge that? That's a great question. So that criteria comes more into play at the full application stage. So we have edited our reviewer questions for the letter of intent. That basically does not come into effect until the full application stage. So you don't really need to worry about proving that this is different at the letter of intent stage. Just obviously something to keep in mind because it will have to be made clear in the full application stage. Okay, so I think that is all the questions that Carrie sent me. Let me go back and see if I accidentally skipped anything. One moment. Okay, I think I'm up to date on questions. If there are any more questions, oh, here came one. You mentioned that there were about 18 final interviewees. Can you roughly tell us how many applicants are selected for the full proposal and the size of the initial pool? Sure. So it's actually 16 final interviewees. So I can give you the stats from last year. We received roughly 250 letters of intent. Roughly 235 of them were eligible and were reviewed. From the 235, we cut to 100 full applications. From the 100 full applications, I think 89 of them were eligible. Many people received additional awards that pushed them out of the 225. From that 89 or so, we selected 16 to come to the interview. And in about a week and a half, we will announce that we have 10 new awardees for 2024. I think those numbers are fairly consistent each year. It's a large program. And we do anticipate receiving about 250 annually. Can you clarify the eligibility based on terminal degree? Sure, I'll go back to that slide. And if I'm not understanding your question correctly, please chime in. But essentially, one of the things that we did as a foundation under Dr. Beckman's directive is to keep this program as true to his word as possible. And the way that we're trying to do that is to make sure that the eligible applicant is new in their career or as new as possible. So with that said, we don't want somebody who potentially, left academia, went into industry for 15 years, came back, and now they're in a tenure track position to apply. This is really supposed to be someone who is just starting their career. This is really their first job in academia, obviously, after being a postdoc. So that's why we put that sort of 10-year cap from receiving your PhD. So it allows you to have some experience in between, but not to get sort of too far off track. Next question, can you speak to some common reasons why full proposals don't make it to the interview or funded stage? Sure. Kind of broadly stating, one of the things that I see quite often, especially at the full proposal stage, is that reviewers feel like this research can be funded elsewhere. We are really looking for applications that are pushing boundaries that more than likely would not be funded by another funding agency, especially because we can only fund 10. That is definitely a criteria that the reviewers take very seriously and take into account. I will say probably less common at the full application stage, but at the LOI stage, it's very easy to see if this is a recycled proposal from another type of grant. So definitely something to keep in mind. Another reason why full proposals don't make it to the interview stage is honestly and truly just competition. It is cutthroat at the full proposal stage, and the applications are really, really excellent. And unfortunately, we can only select so many. All right, next question. I know lots of foundations count end of medical training like residency, fellowship, rather than terminal degree like MD as a terminal degree. So how is that treated? Similarly, so essentially it would be from residency, fellowship. But something to keep in mind, more than likely, if someone is an MD only, they probably would not be eligible for a lot of reasons, but I've seen exceptions to this case. More than likely, it would be an MD PhD that would be eligible. Is the 10-year cutoff at point of application or point of award? It's at point of application. So you can have your, as long as you received your PhD in 2014, you were eligible to apply for the 2025 program. Next question. You said there are no preferred sub areas, but your website says that proposals that open new avenues of research are given additional consideration. Can you provide clarity around whether you prefer only see invention proposals? What proportion of your grants go toward inventions? Surprisingly low. We understand that this is a very unique criteria, but Dr. Beckman was an inventor, so it's something that we do want to take seriously. As far as additional consideration, I can tell you from the program officer standpoint, there are not like additional points or things given to a proposal that has an invention proposal. It's just that we really want reviewers to consider those and maybe sort of consider those amongst that pool as opposed to the broader pool. But again, we don't have any preferred sub areas. I would say on average, maybe 1 to 3 invention-based proposals get funded per year. Okay, it looks like that is now the last of the questions. So we do have more time. Like I mentioned, I'm happy to give it back to you. If you have any last minute questions, we can give it 1 more minute. But if not, let me go to the last slide. So again, you can have my email and phone number. There's 1 more question that came in. In your slides, it was mentioned single target. However, quite often a technology must be developed focusing on 1 protein. Could you comment? I think the single target was specific to if you are doing some type of, what's the word? If you are doing something that is focused on like human trials, things like that, that's not specific, or I guess not as broad as focusing on 1 protein. I hope that that clarifies. If not, you're welcome to reach out to me and I'm happy to look at your research. Okay, well, that's it for questions. My email and phone number are here. The application will open on Monday. It does close August 1st. That is a Thursday. We are aware. So please make sure the applications are in on time. Like I mentioned, I am available. I'm happy to answer questions directly to applicants. I'm happy to speak with people from sponsored research or anyone. And I'm also happy to look specifically at your application if you have specific questions as far as eligibility goes. I just ask that you give me plenty of time, obviously not coming right up to the deadline, especially because it does overlap with our symposium this year.